For 40 minutes, the automated cameras on a deep-sea oil platform in the North Sea recorded something moving through the water below the rig, something the size of the platform's own support legs, circling in the dark 200 feet down. The recordings were logged, time-stamped, and stored on the platform's own servers, the way every hour of footage from that rig was stored. 6 days later, every second of that 40 minutes was gone. Not corrupted, not lost. Deleted, deliberately, from a system that keeps automatic backups of everything by someone with access no ordinary worker had. 2 of the men who saw the live feed that night were reassigned within the month. A third signed a document he was not allowed to keep a copy of. This is what the cameras on that rig recorded in the North Sea, why a multinational energy company moved that fast to make it disappear, and what one engineer copied to a personal drive before the deletion, the only reason any of it is known at all. Start with the rig, because the rig is why this could happen at all. It was a deep water production platform anchored over one of the deeper trenches of the North Sea, where the seabed drops away far below the shallow banks the fishing fleets work. A platform like that is a small city on stilts, standing in hundreds of feet of cold, black water, and it watches itself constantly. Dozens of cameras, above the waterline and below it, running around the clock, because in that environment a single unnoticed problem can cost lives and hundreds of millions of dollars. Those underwater cameras are not there to look for monsters. They watch the support legs, the pipelines, the structural welds, feeding a continuous record to the control room and the company servers on shore, which means that when something enormous came up out of that trench on a night in the North Sea, it swam directly into the view of a system built to miss nothing. Hold that, because it is the whole reason this story exists. The rig was not hunting for anything, it was simply always watching. And one night, something watched back. It began as a fault reading. Just after midnight, the night crew in the control room got an alert from one of the subsea cameras. A fault, the feed dropping and returning. The kind of glitch that happens in cold salt water and gets logged and ignored. But the feed did not settle. It kept cutting, and when the operator pulled up the live image to check the lens, he did not see a fault. He saw movement. Something large was passing through the edge of the camera's light, close enough to break the beam again and again in a slow rhythm. His first thought was a whale, and it was a reasonable thought, and it did not last. Because he brought up the sonar the rig used to monitor its own structure, and the shape on the sonar was not shaped like a whale, and it was not behaving like one. It was circling, tight, deliberate arcs around the base of the platform at a depth of about 200 feet. Keep that word again, circling, because a whale passes through. This thing had chosen the rig, and it was staying. Over the next 40 minutes, the crew in that control room watched a thing they could not name orbit the legs of their platform, and the recordings that captured it were precise in a way no eyewitness ever is. The sonar gave them a length, and the length was the first thing that stopped the room, because the return, edge to edge, was longer than the gaps between the platform's own support legs, a single solid mass moving through the water that measured, by the rig's own instruments, far larger than any shark science recognizes. Not a pod, not debris. One animal, and an animal that size in that water should not exist. The operator did the thing anyone does when an instrument tells them something impossible. He assumed the instrument was wrong, so he cross-checked it against the second sonar array on the opposite leg, and it returned the same length from the same object from the other side. 2 separate systems looking at the same thing, agreeing on a size that could not be real. And then the behavior got worse because it stopped circling and started rising. On the depth readout, the crew watched the number climb, 200 feet, 180, 150, the thing spiraling slowly upward through the structure toward the waterline and the lights. At about 100 feet, it passed directly under the main subsea camera, and for a few seconds the full length of it crossed the frame in the artificial light, and that is the footage the men in that room would talk about for the rest of their lives, in the careful way people talk about things they are afraid will not be believed. A vast dark shape, unhurried, filling the entire width of the camera's view and continuing past its edges, long after a normal animal would have cleared the frame. It did not react to the lights. It did not flinch from the structure. It moved through the legs of a platform built to survive North Sea storms, as though the platform were a piece of reef it had swum past 1,000 times. And at around 80 feet, without striking anything, without any of the drama the crew were braced for, it simply turned and descended, back down into the trench it had come from, and the sonar tracked it going, 200 feet, 400, 600, until it dropped below the range of the rig's instruments, and was gone. The exciting answer is a surviving Megalodon, and it has to be set aside honestly because the honest version is the strong one. The fossil record puts that animal's extinction at around 3.5 million years ago, and the standard model describes it as a warm water, shallow coast hunter, which on paper rules out a cold North Sea trench entirely. But that model rests on a single assumption, that the animal lived where its remains are found. Its fossils settle onto the sea floor, and we recover them from shallow, well-surveyed water for one reason, because the deep ocean floor has essentially never been sampled. Look at a map of how much of the deep sea we have actually explored, and it is very close to nothing. If a population had followed the cooling water and the migrating prey down into the deep trenches as the surface seas chilled, their remains would rest on a bottom no survey has ever touched, and we would call the animal extinct because we had never looked in the one place it went. Whatever the rig recorded was larger than any known shark, moved with purpose through a deep cold trench, and registered identically on two separate instruments. We do not have to give it a name to be unable to explain it. And that is the part the company's response makes impossible to wave away. Because here is the detail that turns this from a strange night into something else entirely. If the crew had panicked over a whale, if the sonar had glitched, if the whole thing were a misreading by tired men in the dark, then there was nothing to hide, and the footage would have stayed on the servers like every other boring hour of subsea video, and no one would ever have touched it. Instead, within 6 days, every frame of those 40 minutes was deliberately deleted from a system that automatically backs itself up by someone with high-level access, and the men who saw it were separated and silenced. You do not erase nothing. You do not reassign engineers and hand out non-disclosure agreements over a whale. Whatever the company's own cameras captured that night, someone above the level of that platform looked at it, understood what it was, and decided the safest thing the corporation could do was to make certain it had never happened. The deletion is not the cover-up of the story. The deletion is the evidence. We know any of this for one reason only. One engineer on that rig, in the days between the sighting and the purge, copied the sonar logs and a segment of the footage onto a personal drive, because something in his gut told him it would not be there much longer. He was right. He never released the video. He had signed the same document as the others, and he had a family and a career and a company with more lawyers than he could imagine. But he kept it. And what he has described to the few people he trusted matches every piece of this account. The length on 2 sonars, the 40 minutes of circling, the rise through the legs, the shape that filled the frame and kept filling it. He is the only reason the water below that platform is anything more than an ordinary stretch of the North Sea. So we are left with a rig that watched something the size of its own structure circle it for 40 minutes and rise through its legs in the dark, and a company that moved within a week to guarantee no one would ever see it. The North Sea trench that thing came out of is still there, still cold, still deep, still swallowing the light 100 feet down. The platform still stands over it, still watching, its cameras running around the clock. And whatever came up out of that trench on that night, unhurried and enormous and entirely unbothered by the machine we built in its water, is still down there below the reach of the instruments, in the one part of that sea we have decided, officially, contains nothing at all. If you have ever been out on deep water and felt something you could not explain, a shape too large, a shadow that passed under the hull, or a pull too strong to be real, tell me where you were in the comments, and subscribe to the Water Files for more accounts from the deep.